What's up? Hope my subscribers are killing it, and the rest of you are not being killed by it. Back digging that hole, looking for some decent soy sauce. Ketanji Brown Jackson, by all measures I have observed, appears to be a very competent, qualified, and exemplary nominee for the Supreme Court. I don't often give my opinions in my videos, but to be clear and upfront on this one, I'd say that she will make a fine Supreme Court judge, and it is probably a good thing if she indeed falls on the left side of the political divide, given the current number of justices who fall on the right. As seems to be my lot in life, though, I don't want to focus on what most people seem to want to. What I want to focus on isn't her qualifications, nor her appointment, nor really her at all. I want to focus on the conversation of two men surrounding her appointment. I believe that it is these conversations, when we disagree, where we both have the chance of moving closer to truth. Michael Knowles and David Pakman had a short back and forth about a particular question asked of Ketanji, so did they have a useful conversation? And is this the sort of conversation that two important figures who represent their political sides should be having, or is this another example of two grandmas fighting over a sweet potato that looks a bit like the Virgin Mary?
I am worried sometimes that we are not giving the best argument for the other side, or that we simply don't understand what the other side is saying. So, in the interest of actually hearing out the other side, I'm very pleased to bring on David Pakman.
Well, a good start. No, a great start. It is much harder to straw man an opponent if they are literally in conversation with you at the time. Speaking to people who disagree with you is a great way to test your ideas, learn, and possibly gain a new ally. As an aside, I'm trying to get some long-form interviews going as well. So, if you have a bone to pick, an AFI to kick, or just want to call me hit me up in the comments, or on any of my social media links below.
You saw the clip, you've been watching the Ketanji Jackson hearings. Am I crazy, or should a twice Harvard-educated nominee, federal judge, nominee for the Supreme Court, who is a woman, be able to define what a woman is?
I can't say if you're crazy. That would be for a mental health professional.
For my doctor.
You're either dishonest or ignorant, and we can maybe figure out which. So here's the deal. I mean, I'm kind of, we're just meeting each other. I'm sort of kidding around, but here's the deal.
With all I can muster in terms of charitable listening, this is probably not the best approach to take, David. I did hear you say I am sort of kidding around. I also like to try to use humor from time to time, and perhaps, just as yourself, I often fall flat on my face. I would guess, however, that starting a conversation with, "You're either dishonest or ignorant," is not the best way to start an honest, good-faith conversation while seeking truth.
There are no instances where, when issues come before the Supreme Court, it comes down to the dictionary definition of a word.
The question, David, was should a woman who is a Supreme Court nominee be able to define the word woman? Your answer indicated your stance that no Supreme Court judge would ever have to define a word with a dictionary definition. Again, if I'm being very charitable, it seems as if you're saying no. You may be surprised to learn, David, that in fact not only are dictionary definitions very commonly used in courts, yes, including the Supreme Court, but that the dictionary most often used is called Black's Law Dictionary. Ballantyne's Law Dictionary is another commonly used dictionary in the Supreme Court, and there are others. You may be further interested in the legal definition of female. I quote, the sex which conceives and gives birth to young, also a member of such sex. The term is generic, but may have the specific meaning of woman, if so indicated by the context." End quote. It seems like, despite your lack of knowledge in this area, dictionary definitions of words are in fact quite important in legal matters.
When it comes to who counts as a woman, or what is discrimination, or what is negligence, it's always in very narrow circumstances where dictionary definitions do almost nothing for you.
Wrong again, David. When it comes to discrimination, negligence, and a great many other topics, legal dictionaries are commonly used. If you are only referring to non-legal or common dictionaries, you're still mistaken. This is a controversial matter, as in the murder case trial from Virginia, and info can be found at the dictionary.com link in the description. I would agree that regular dictionaries should not be used by judges or indeed jurors. However, your claim that dictionaries aren't used, or perhaps do very little for courts or justices, is simply incorrect.
So she was very smart not to play into these kind of rhetorical black holes, because whatever definition she gives, Michael, she then is going to be pushed into some corner with some case or article or book she hasn't read, by the way, and there's no upside to it.
Well, I would have to agree with you there, David, but honestly, it does make me sad. First, the agreement. Yes, it was very smart for her to not give a definition. Not, however, for the reasons you gave. If she gave an answer, and then was cornered due to not knowing some case or article, this would be very important information for a Supreme Court nominee to show she knows or doesn't know. The reason I think it was smart of her is the political circus that has existed for too long and only seems to be getting worse. Had she given a, let's go with more traditional definition, many on the left would have been quite upset. Had she given a, let's go with newer definition, many on the right would have been quite upset. As the job of a Supreme Court justice is supposed to exist between, or perhaps apart from these two political parties, and either answer would have gotten her into trouble with one of them, yes, she is smart to not have answered. But I really do find this sad. Had she been asked to define a judge, a juror, law, a sandwich, or even a book, I think she would have considered it a bit, and probably would have given a very thoughtful answer. It is unfortunate that a person has to check and recheck themselves due only to politics in this situation. What we're seeing here is a judicial nominee being swayed, in this case to do nothing, by political motives. This is not what Supreme Court judges are meant to do. I do not blame her in the least. I blame us.
I don't agree with you that it's boring. I think it's one of the most interesting questions in the country that we're now at a point where we can no longer even define man or woman.
This is an interesting point, and I may do a video on it in the future. People have been using words as weapons, as well as redefining them for quite some time. This does happen naturally, as well as artificially, and can be good or quite bad. Lately, this has been a huge issue, and it is probably worth a deeper dive than what I have time for right now. Yes, it probably says something about the poor state of our thinking that the definition of woman is undergoing intense debate. But if woman is the only example of this that you can see, I might consider advising you to ask 3 mice for directions to the farmer's wife. If you ever get there, send some pics. Michael then goes on to talk about the point I'd already mentioned. If she answers one way, she loses half the country. If she answers the other way, she loses the other half. The tribalistic politics that we find ourselves encased in is and has been causing problems.
But I do agree with you on strategy.
This is a great idea. Underlining the points the other has made with which we agree is an olive branch that allows the conversation to move forward. When we agree on a point, there's no need to come back to it.
But what about the law? What about the definition? You say she shouldn't be quoting the dictionary. Well, fine. Shouldn't she at least be able to give the legal definition of a woman? Shouldn't she, a woman, have some sense of what that is? I'm not a meteorologist. I can tell you if it's raining.
Well, that's a pretty poor argument, Michael. You've just agreed that this is a good strategy on her part to not define what a woman is. I even agree with you on why. But then you ask if she shouldn't be able to give a legal definition. Well, yes, she should be able to give the legal definition. I would even bet that she is very aware of the legal definition. But, as you've just said, it's a good strategy to not give the definition. Listen to your argument back, Michael. It is a smart thing for Ketanji to not define a woman. She should be able to legally define a woman. So she should give us a legal definition of woman. Mike, you've contradicted yourself. If one is smart to not do something, you are saying they should not do it. Yet you are asking why she didn't. Because she's smart? The real issue here is the tribalistic politics that cause her to understand that answering the question would be a problem for her future.
Yeah, there is no legal definition of a woman, and that's exactly the point.
As I have mentioned, David, you are mistaken. There is a legal definition of female. Again, it is, and I quote, the sex which conceives and gives birth to young, also a member of such sex. The name is generic, but may have the specific meaning of woman if so indicated by the context. End quote. And this is exactly the point. You, sir, are misinformed. No problem, buddy. Everybody makes mistakes. But worse than being misinformed is misinforming. I would prefer it if you didn't spread your mistakes to hundreds of thousands of people. But then again, I would prefer shrimp to be banned from restaurants. Looks like my preferences don't mean so much.
It's literally irrelevant to her job as a Supreme Court justice. And so, again, we can have a cultural discussion outside of the context of the Supreme Court in the Senate's job in evaluating, is she qualified?
I'm not so sure, David. You could make the argument that if she never hears a case about animal cruelty, she doesn't need to know what an animal is. I suppose you would be correct, but I don't think I would trust a mechanic who doesn't know what a tree is. I would shy away from doctors who don't know what helicopters are, and I'm very suspicious of popular personalities who have no idea how to disagree constructively. Aimed at you and Michael, and pretty much all others I can think of. Don't feel centered out. And yet, sadly, I agree with you that it was in her best interest to not answer the question. When we hire people for a position, any position, of course we want to make sure they are qualified for the specific position. We're also often interested in other areas as well. Hobbies, personal philosophies, and even general knowledge questions all combine to give us a better idea of the candidate in question, which allows us to choose the best candidate for our specific needs.
I think you can, because I think all of the 9 justices on the court can tell you what a woman is. And so I know we're getting back.
Yikes, Michael. That is called a non sequitur. If all the other judges are able to define what a woman is, that does not make them more qualified than Ketanji. Being qualified for any position is more complex than a single point of measurement. If Justice Clarence Thomas knows how Teletubbies reproduce, that does not make him more qualified than other judges. Qualifications for positions come down to lots of factors, weighted differently, all of which combine to give an overall appraisal of one's total qualification rating. Past experience, education, specific knowledge in relevant fields, and even general knowledge all come together to give us this qualification picture. It simply does not follow that one is more qualified than another for a Supreme Court position simply because they're able to answer a single question another may refuse to answer. We need to make good arguments to convince others. Fallacies may cut it with a great many people, but give me some time. I'm working on it.
But we have to be able to, what I hope are reasonable people, Michael, understand that in the context of her role as a Supreme Court justice, it doesn't come down to a biological opinion. Like, can you at least grant that piece?
I can almost grant that. Her appointment should not be decided on biological knowledge. However, you did say biological opinion. If this was the word you wanted to use, which it may not be, you're mistaken again. A biological opinion may be something like intelligent design, or we are the descendants of giants, or even the belief that we are evolved daffodils. Who knows what different idiots believe? All of these are potential beliefs, and none of them are facts. Or, if you prefer, they are opinions, and not knowledge. If Ketanji or any other judge held these beliefs, I'd say we should not appoint them. If you can grant that, David, we're on the same page.
I grant your point a little bit, except that Marcia Blackburn didn't ask for the biological definition or the dictionary definition. That's what Ketanji Jackson added. She said, I'm not a biologist. But all Marcia Blackburn asked was, just tell me what a woman is from a legal perspective, a constitutional perspective, a philosophical, I mean, whatever.
That's literally not what Marcia Blackburn said. I would encourage you to pull the clip and identify the time at which she said that.
She said she didn't mention biology and she didn't mention the dictionary. She said, what's the
But you just asserted that she said she wanted the legal and philosophical. She never said that.
No, I didn't say that. I said I just said Marcia Blackburn asked for the definition, any sort of definition that Ketanji Jackson could give of woman. She didn't specify biology.
Now you're backtracking. Michael.
I'm not backtracking at all.
That's dishonest now.
I'm not back. How am I backtracking?
No. Hold on a second. Let's be clear. 30 seconds ago, you said Marcia Blackburn didn't ask for the biological. She asked for the legal.
No, I didn't.
Let me finish the sentence.
Okay, but you're misrepresenting what I said.
No, I'm not. I would encourage the audience to rewind.
I would encourage that. I would encourage that as well. But
first said, but can I even get it out?
Sure,
or is this,
sure.
I mean, it's okay. The problem with what you just did, Michael, is you just said Blackburn asked for the legal definition, and I said no, she didn't. And you said no, that's true. She actually just asked for the definition.
I'm sorry. Well, then if either you misheard or it seemed that I misspoke, I'll be very clear. Marcia Blackburn just said, what's the definition of a woman? She didn't specify anything else. Now, you then said that biology has no place here, or that the dictionary definition has no place, but that's not what Marcia Blackburn asked for.
Okay, this is what happens when one tries to win an argument instead of having an honest conversation. What Marcia Blackburn actually asked was, and I quote, "Can you provide a definition for the word woman?" Michael attempted to refute David's point about a Supreme Court justice not having to know the biological nor dictionary definition, due to Ketanji not being asked about the biological nor dictionary definition. Michael, quite poorly, pointed out that Ketanji could have answered the legal, constitutional, or philosophical definitions, or really any kind of definition. David, giving him the benefit of the doubt due to Michael's poorly formed question, misunderstood the question that Michael was trying to ask. Instead, saying that Michael was asserting that Ketanji was asked for the legal, constitutional, or philosophical definition. Michael attempted to correct the misunderstanding, but David wasn't interested in this. His interest seemed to revolve around scoring a debate point. I make mistakes. A lot. You make mistakes. Michael and David make mistakes. We misspeak, we mishear, and we are all susceptible to failures of understanding. If I think you said that all elephants can fly, and you are now telling me you in fact did not say or mean that, should I allow you the chance to clarify, or should I continue with my straw man fallacy? David decided to double down on what he understood instead of engaging honestly with Michael's points. This is something that is very common and shows a complete lack of ability to have an honest conversation. David, you misheard. Or maybe he misspoke. Clear it up and move on. There is no need to hold someone to something you thought they said if they're trying to clarify that point. David, Michael, CNN, Fox, all do this ad nauseum. This sort of immature, ignorant, "he said that my daddy is fat" kind of communication should be far beneath us. But obviously, some children never grow out of childhood. It's not about winning. It's not about scoring points. It's about trying to find the truth. David, at the very least on this point, has no idea how to do that, or perhaps has no interest in it.
She just asked a simple question.
Understand that in these Supreme Court hearings, the senators can ask the questions however they want, and the nominees can answer them however they want.
Or not answer them.
My opinion is, this is my opinion, and you can have a different one, and that's the great thing about America, Michael. My opinion is that if you're interviewing for the job of Supreme Court Justice, it's reasonable to assume the questions have a legal bearing as to your role on the court.
Thank you for that opinion, David. As long as we're slinging opinions around, senators can ask whatever questions they want, in any manner they want. If a senator wanted to ask her favorite animal or wanted to pat her on the back for being, well, anything, that is their prerogative. Our duty would be to not elect idiots. But, well, we seem to really love to do that. I would like to think that if a senator were well known for wasting time asking foolish questions, they would not be reelected and maybe would even be removed from their position, according to the desires of their constituents, of course. I think your opinion about nominees being able to answer however they want is deeply problematic. First, yes, of course the nominee may answer however they like, but if the answer does not address the question, then much like the senator, perhaps they're showing us their inability to think or communicate, therefore potentially making them unfit for the position. Check out this video from Canada as an example. Link is also in the description. The issue with Ketanji isn't this, though. It is the politics which surround her appointment. And in this lies the problem.
Judge Jackson was right to understand the point of the question is to back her into a rhetorical corner about legal definitions. And she was right to say, it's not something I can answer. These are narrow issues when they come before the court, and there's no reason that she would ask such a question.
Okay, so David here just got finished saying that judicial nominees should be asked questions which relate to the Supreme Court. When asked for a definition, she could have given a legal one. That would fit your previous comment about keeping things in the context of the appointment, but you went on to say there is no reason she should be asked such a question. Contradiction much? If you are for women's rights, if you think that women have rights which slightly or drastically differ from the rights of men, then you would have to be able to define a woman legally. Myself, I don't think there are men's rights, women's rights, nor any other separation of rights. Personally, I believe in human rights, the rights of all humans. I further do not think these actually exist, although some have heroically tried. The problem is simple. If the rights we grant humans do not equally and always apply to every human, they just aren't rights. They're privileges. Certainly, you may play in your little country, in your little corner of the world. Me, I would rather end slavery and the killing of innocents around the world, as well as countless other horribly immoral acts that are perpetuated around the world every day. You do you.
When I was on with Jesse, he said to me, David, define what love is and what a man is. And it's a really common rhetorical technique for the bad faith right to start with just pick a word and define it and use it to back someone into a rhetorical corner. It's a waste of time, Michael. Let's talk about real issues, please.
Yikes. You couldn't be more wrong and would benefit from listening to what you yourself say and applying it in the real world. First, let me help. Love, as I would define it, would be something like a brain state or emotion which signifies great feeling, similar to, but stronger than like. And I would define man as something like the adult human which produces or could otherwise produce sperm as opposed to eggs. If you have issues with these definitions, we could talk about them, and you may very well be able to change my mind. You then went on to talk about definitions as rhetorical techniques used by people of bad faith. You have this backwards, sir. We ask for definitions in philosophy so we can understand what the other is trying to say. We need to grasp their understanding and usages of words so that we can make sense of their arguments. This is elementary school stuff. Let's practice together, David. All people on the left are on the right. Am I correct, David, or not? As educated people would tell you, it depends a great deal on what I mean by on the left and on the right. If we're talking about the left as politically left and the right as politically right, then no, I'm wrong, and this is an absurd statement. However, if I am saying that the people to my left are politically on the right, I'm perfectly justified, so long as in fact the people standing on the left of me are in fact right-leaning voters. Your inability to understand this calls into question the value of listening to you speak at all. If you are uninterested in what your words mean, if you are uninterested in what my words mean, then I guess the only thing remaining to say is that my mama ate your cat's hat while running a marathon. What I really mean by these words is that you know as much about philosophy as an ant who's missing a mandible.
But you have convinced me that she is a wise politician.
And this is the problem I was alluding to. She, like all people in positions of power, are being forced to answer, and indeed act, at least publicly, in regards to the political climate of the times. But it's worse than this, because there are only two sides. Making one happy necessarily means making the other completely lose their minds. This is very black and white thinking. It is a sad thing that way too many don't seem to be able to approach this or a great many topics with any semblance of nuance. The left restricting speech is a problem. The right restricting bodily autonomy for women is a problem. Both sides, the left and the right, have horrible backwards ideas. And there are indeed good ideas on both sides as well. And no, I'm not saying they're equal. It is the tribalistic adherents to either side which are the ones who are hurting us. Who are they? Well, as far as I can tell, damn near everyone.
Do you have, either you yourself or you speaking for the progressives, do you have a working definition that you would use?
No, I don't do, like I told Jesse Lee Peterson, and there's so many, this interview is feeling a lot like that one, interestingly enough. I don't do dictionary, I do politics. And so, no, I don't spend time defining words.
So you don't do definitions, you do politics. David, what are politics? You're on the left. What does that mean? You are, to some degree, against the right. Who or what are they? I would bet you are against what has been named the Don't Say Gay bill. David, what is a bill? What does gay mean? And what does it mean for one to say they are against something? When we have conversations, debates, disagreements, there will always be confusion over issues, standpoints, and indeed words. If you're not going to define what you are talking about, how the hell am I supposed to know what you're talking about? Especially after you've just showed that you don't know or care to explain what you're talking about.
Here's in all seriousness, Michael.
Yeah.
Let's now talk philosophically. Really, we're talking, man to man now. Dictionaries are descriptive, not proscriptive. So
well, they're prescriptive sometimes too. But they can be descriptive. They are descriptive and prescriptive as well, right? The word means this.
By definition, humans decide what to put in the dictionary, right? So they're just these are descriptive.
But they put it there because the words mean something.
At the time, believe.
It seems quite obvious, David, that you have no idea what speaking philosophically means. Certainly, it has nothing necessarily to do with man to man, which I would like to ask you what you mean by that, but I understand that you don't do definitions.
The word means
by definition. By definition.
So let's move on. You said dictionaries, which we've already seen you don't know much about, are descriptive and not proscriptive. First, as apparently you won't be bothered to look it up, proscriptive means to forbid or restrict something. You are correct, sir. Dictionaries. No dictionaries forbid nor restrict definitions of words. I think you probably misspoke, though. I would imagine you meant prescriptive, which means enforcing a rule or method. For your information, these could be seen as inverse meanings. However, you may be interested in knowing that there are many different kinds of dictionaries. Some are intended to be prescriptive, such as Funk and Wagnalls, while most dictionaries contain both prescriptive as well as descriptive items. Certainly, the descriptive ones are more numerous. And all of that circle jerking while aiming at a pizza just to be able to pat oneself on the back for taking a slice out of the other team. And where did we get? Nowhere at all. Michael thinks Ketanji should have answered. David thinks she shouldn't have answered. Both have agreed, which is where they started, that she was smart to not answer the question. The topic of one Supreme Court justice is not a hill I would choose to die on. Having said that, I am glad she has gotten the seat. The issue, at least for me, is the communication. We are not having it. What we see here between Michael and David looks more like a couple of kittens fighting over their mommy's teat, which has annoyed Mom so much that she has walked away. Now neither of them have milk. As a general rule, I don't really care if the milk goes to the cat named Dumb or the cat named Dumber. I care about the discussion. It is the discussion that is supposed to advance our understanding of who in fact should get the milk. But this is not what happens. Not here, not largely anywhere. Just a bit of advice to leave you two gentlemen with. Get the teat out of your mouth and learn to have a conversation. You know, a real philosophical conversation? Like, man to man?